And good morning. Well, it's the beginning of another work week for most people on the planet. Mondays. For me, it's usually my busiest day of the week as far as doing the Metagroup's community calendar weekend events page. But I've been getting a little bit of a head start on that the past couple of weekends, so it shouldn't be too bad again today. We'll see. Anyway, the title for today is 2012, David Wilcock, Masons, Enlightenment, Charles Finney. I wrote, I never expected, when I began reading David Wilcock's latest exposé, to hear about Charles Finney in relation to the Masons of the 19th century. He was one of my heroes 40 years ago. I was also reminded how the Illuminati uses the word enlightenment as part of its self-deception. Here are some of my thoughts on these subjects. I've left myself a lot of room there. Yeah. Yes, I began reading the Wilcock's thing day before yesterday when it was first released. And in 3 different segments yesterday, I completed the reading of it. It was very long, very informative, and I probably agree with most of it. I've come to trust David Wilcock as an honest expositor of information. I don't always agree with him 100%, but pretty close. Pretty close. I hear people say, well, he's got too much ego. Well, anybody that does anything has to have a little bit more of ego than the average person, or they wouldn't do what they do, and that includes myself. So have at him, have at me, whatever. And it's usually the people that aren't doing anything that do the most criticizing about others having too much ego. It's a little point that I didn't intend to bring up, but there it is. Anyway, he had a large section of his expose dealing with the Masons and the Illuminati and the connection of the Bavarian Illuminati integrating and infiltrating the Masons of the 18th century into the 19th century. Now, as a young man, probably still in my teens and early 20s, I came across Charles Grandison Finney, who was an attorney, a lawyer, who lived in upstate New York, who became a born-again Christian and one of the greatest evangelists of that era. And I was absolutely enamored with his story, especially when I got hold of his autobiography, which I had to order, that and his Systematic Theology, both of which were fairly thick books. And I read them with great interest. In fact, when I lived in Cedar City, Utah, back in 1970, when was it? 1976, 77 maybe? Somewhere in that era. Well, I'm trying to think, maybe was it earlier than that? Anyway, be that as it may. Whenever it was that I lived in Cedar City, Utah, I was going to a Pentecostal church in a little town outside of Cedar City, a little United Pentecostal church, I believe it was. And we had an evangelist there who was a Native American from some tribe up near Cheyenne, Wyoming, or somewhere in Wyoming. And he and I got to talking about Charles Finney. And I told him that the autobiography really, really moved me. And at the time when I read it, it certainly did. And so anyway, I loaned this evangelist the book, and he promised that he would mail it back, which of course never happened. And I lost that book that I had. It wasn't even still in print, if I remember right. I had to order it from a special place in Michigan, if my memory serves me correctly, through a bookstore in Ridgewood, New Jersey. And I give you all that useless information just because I remember it. Anyway, Charles Finney was so powerful that he could walk into a factory in his day and people would be moved greatly by the Spirit of God and come into true repentance. And I besides those 2 books that I named, I also had some books of his sermons, and I tried to deliver one of his sermons called True Saints at one time. And that was one of the lessons that I learned about never try to deliver somebody else's message. Use your own. It was one of the floundering experiences of getting up in front of a church, standing behind a pulpit, and falling flat on my face, although I recovered nicely when I realized what I was doing and I got the message right in the middle of my message, the message to me, not the one that I was trying to give to the congregation, and just simply told the truth. And I've learned over the years that telling the truth is really the only thing that we're capable of doing. And what is the truth? The truth is our own point of view, our own feelings, our own story, our own thoughts. Share what you know. Don't share what you think, what you've been told. Share what you know from personal experience or what resonates with you. Because if it doesn't resonate with you, you're wasting your time trying to share it with somebody else. And so many people of all persuasions do that, whether it's in business, politics, or religion. Many of us tend to parrot other people's points of view rather than speaking from our own heart. And I'm convinced that speaking from our heart is the only thing that's real. Everything else is BS. Anyway, I didn't realize, I didn't even remember, I should say, that Charles Finney was involved in the anti-Masonic movement of his generation. The Masons were of absolutely zero interest to me at that point in my life. I had, not too long after that, come across the concept of the Illuminati, having something to do with the Mormons. I don't remember all the details, but I do remember that there was something to do, some connection between the Mormons and the Illuminati on what I learned when I was in my 20s. But I didn't remember Charles Finney being involved in any of that. Now, no doubt it had to have been in his autobiography, but I never read the book David Wilcock mentioned in his exposé. But he talks about the Masons and the Illuminati trying to undermine religion, especially Christianity, and substituting Enlightenment as the new religion, which now I understand, having read that again, why so many Christians are in such a defensive mode and an attack mode, attacking those that they see as New Age, because they see this whole Enlightenment movement as some kind of a plan of Luciferian religionists. And so again, I'm understanding where Christians are coming from when they attack me and say that I'm a New Ager, because this is part of Madame Blavatsky's and the Theosophical Society's attempts to create this dark religion called Enlightenment. And the Illuminati are anything but enlightened. I mean, that's why I said it was a self-deception. They consider themselves enlightened because they learned how certain things work in the world, and they learned the power of words, and they learned the power of commitment, and they learned the power of sticking together and staying on message. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things that they learned, that they've employed. But they're self-deceived because they are doing it without love. Light, when there's not love, isn't light. It's darkness. It's not real enlightenment. What is real enlightenment? And real enlightenment requires that you come from the heart. Well, because of some of the practices of of these elite families, of torturing their own children, and of sexual abuse and pedophilia and some of these other things that David covered in his expose. Because of this, their hearts are hardened against love, which is why in the real enlightenment that we're going through right now, the real awakening that is occurring right now, love is the answer. We need to love these people that have been so abused. And David has pointed this out in some of his other writings, that these are people who are hurting. And Slavali, or however you say her name, that he talked about, she indicated that many of these people want out, but they don't know how to get out. And so few of them make it because they have made an oath under threat of death not to reveal the secrets. That's one of the things that we're learning right now in this awakening. There can't be any secrets. Secrets, when you hold on to secrets, the secrets imprison you in your own secrecy. And that's why enlightenment, it's a self-deception. That's not enlightened when you have to keep secrets. Do you understand that enlightenment is being opened like the lotus blossom? It's exposing everything that's been hidden. It's dealing with the shadow, as Carl Jung taught us. We need to get this through our heads and hearts, both. The Illuminati deals with it on a head trip. It's an ego trip. It's a control mechanism. It's all about power and control and keeping damn secrets. I wish I could convince every one of you that you're only as free as you're willing to reveal the truth about yourself, especially the truth that you think is so ugly and so horrible. In other words, the shadow. Until you're willing to deal with your own shadow issues, you can call yourself enlightened. You can call yourself a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist or a Jew or whatever religion you want to take, or an atheist, enlightened atheism. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. Enlightenment is the law of one. Recognizing the interconnectedness of all life is the foundational truth of true awakening. Without that, you can use the words, but they don't mean anything. They're lies. They're fiction. It's deception. Only when we're willing to open up to all possibilities are we in the place where we are teachable. And not until we're teachable, except you become as a little child, Jesus said, until we become teachable, we can't learn anything. As the monk said to his disciple when he was pouring the tea, that he kept pouring it after the teacup was full. And the student said, "Wait, stop, it's running over." And the teacher said, "As long as you're filled with your own ideas, you'll never get anything else in." It's about continuously emptying ourselves and being humble. The meek shall inherit the earth. That's the humble. The people that are willing to say, I don't have all the answers. I don't know. Otherwise, you're just dwelling in a deception of thinking you're enlightened, but you're at war with your ego. You're at war with what you call the illusion. You're at war with this party or that party. And the Luciferians, they think that God, that there's two gods. There's a good God and a bad God. And they say the bad God is the one in the Bible that destroyed all the people and had murder and everything else. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong. The jealous God is not a good depiction of a quality that you would attribute to a loving God. You simply would not do that. So the Luciferians are right. They're right. That Lucifer was saying, hey, expand your knowledge. Knowledge isn't a bad thing. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that's not a bad thing. You need to understand that. You need to understand that. And it's, yeah, you're gonna learn about death. You're gonna learn about the negative side, but you're gonna learn. That's going to awaken you and bring you into true enlightenment. But not unless, or not until, you get the heart involved. It's not just learning with the head. It's embracing with the heart. You leave the heart out and you've got a religion. You've got dogmatism. And that will always kill. That's why it says in the Bible, the letter kills, but the spirit gives life. And why Jesus said, you study the scriptures, you search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, but you don't come to me that you might have life. And so, anyway, in reading David Wilcock's long expose, I was reminded of things from the past. And I hope that in sharing them with you today, I've helped you to see at least where I'm coming from, and to go into your own heart and ask yourself, where do I want to be in all this? Do I want to keep fighting those that say they're enlightened? Or do I want to end the war? Do I want to learn to love those parts of me that are so difficult to love? The parts that I felt made me unacceptable or not good enough. I want to tell you, you are good enough. And that's the gospel. That's the truth. That's the good news. You've always been good enough, no matter what you've done, because it's just been an experience. Not an illusion, an experience from which you're able to gain wisdom if you so choose. But gaining wisdom is going into the heart and learning to love all of it. For we are each, all of it. We each contain the whole. Think on these things today, and let your heart be joyful if you're able to embrace the possibility that you don't have all the answers. Namaste. Blessings.